Our journey begins. It's day 23, June 23, 2024, and it is a beautiful morning here, well before the sun is going to come up, and there's a slight breeze, very similar to yesterday, except there are a couple clouds. The moon is currently behind the clouds, and it's a little bit more breezy. And it's currently 75 degrees. Although it feels similar. I don't know if it's just the breeze or maybe the humidity is a little bit lower. At any rate, I knew that I wanted to come out here because I could hear the breeze rustling through the trees, and I was like, I'm definitely going out there and at least starting the work session outside in beautiful morning. It is, you can see a little bit more than yesterday, I think, because the full moon is lighting up the clouds, which there's more clouds, and so that, or it just appears brighter for some reason. So one thing I wanted to talk about was I prefer to just be transparent. Like throughout this entire journey, I just want to be transparent to a degree that it makes sense. Like sometimes, like being overly transparent and like giving all of the useless details isn't valuable for anyone, and there are some details where no one really cares, so it's like it doesn't make sense to be transparent about them. But I wanted to be transparent with the YouTube growth, just because I want to look back and say that I was proud of myself throughout the whole journey. So in my mind, I promoted the first videos because I was seeing that the YouTube algorithm was only promoting, or was only really like showing the videos to like a certain number of people. And sometimes the videos would get absolutely no views because YouTube was not showing the videos to anyone. And that's when I realized that I could not depend on the YouTube algorithm to do it. So then I was thinking through other methods, and at one point I saw that YouTube has a promotional feature where you promote your videos so that other people can see them. You're basically you're like paying for the reach to be increased. And so I did that. I've only really spent a small amount so far, but that's what's attributed to my somewhat quick growth of 1.5 thousand subscribers over, it's been about 3 weeks now. And and so I guess the main point is like that the reason that I have that many followers is because I promoted the content. And I think that I was doing that mainly to just get a few viewers. In my mind, all subscribers were the same. But I was reading up on the promotional feature, and it seems that it doesn't actually, like, it's not the best way, because it's apparently not, like, the people that do subscribe through those don't actually watch your videos. And so then there's no really point in getting subscribers through that. So I'll probably not be doing that anymore. But unfortunately in this world, it does, like, people often look for validity, like, how many followers does someone have? And if they have some followers, then it makes you look more valid, even if you were extremely valid before. And so they're more likely to click on the video. So it is like a weird thing where, but I mean, still, like, my intent from the beginning was just to increase the reach. And in my mind, if people were interested in it, then they would subscribe. But I guess it might not necessarily be that way. It might be that even if people aren't interested, they'll subscribe. I'm not exactly sure. Either way, it's not really about that, but I just wanted to be transparent and put that out there. And ultimately, since no one's really going to be listening to these, and if you are, I appreciate it, and I hope and I wish you the best on your journey as well. It will probably be because someone wants to see the steps that I took, or it'll be an AI who's training on this, or who is bored and wants to see what I did back when I was starting the journey. So I might as well share parts about that journey and that growth and be transparent about it. So I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to talk about today. I think I'm going to do a work session when I get back and I'm going to do a thinking session through the movement. I'd really like to think through it more, which and that's just because it requires so much thinking. Like, you could have the hopeful intent of a better world, but if that's just a hopeful intent, then like, what is that even worth? It's the planning of how to get there. It's the coordination, the hard work of putting in all of the different things that need to happen that actually can change things. And so it does take time to plan, even though all the planning seems like, oh, that's a waste. So, because like yesterday I was thinking through more planning of how are we going to inspire the movement? How are we going to keep the movement so engaging that people will be engaged with it? So like those type of questions I'm going to explore this morning and hopefully loop back in some of the other things that I've been exploring in the sort of the diagrams that we've been going through. But yeah, I do feel like I've spent hundreds of hours thinking through this stuff before. It's like, why isn't there an answer to it yet? Why do I have to keep thinking? And I think the answer to that is that if it was that simple, we would have it figured out already. The fact that it's not really figured out already means that it's at least a little bit difficult. So I'm learning, but I also wonder if I don't necessarily need to have it all figured out. I just need to be able to have the core parts figured out and so crisp and clear that it's evident to everyone, and then be able to figure out the core element of how to begin the inspiration of the movement, and then we can progress. So I'm thinking we could start answering the question of so we were discussing creating doing more planning. Unfortunately, I don't remember where that train of thought was going, but I do know that I wanted to kind of brainstorm on a particular element of that. I'm not exactly sure which one. So we could just start with any one in particular let's just start exploring okay, now I remember. It was the core thing. So like, what are those core things that we have to get right? kind of like the base core things. And if you can hear that, those are the foxes. They always sound quite screechy. So if you have a movement of people all in synergy, working towards something amazing, like, yeah, you don't necessarily have to have it all figured out, and that's like the whole principle of the self-organizing thing, but you need to be able to have the core self-organizing principles. So let's do some brainstorming about what those core self-organizing principles could be. And I think we've done this as well. We have kind of explored this, but perhaps under the moonlit sky on a breezy summer evening, we'll be able to get a little bit farther with some of that exploration. So I mean, you could say one self-organizing principle is simply that it is vastly beneficial to be part of the movement. It provides a lot of genuine purpose. It makes everyone who's a part of it, their lives much better. It seeks to help the entirety of the world, not just the people in the movement. It's hopefully going to be a little bit of a selfless principle. It's going to be living the best version of your life, so whatever that means for you will probably be promoted. Although there's probably some small stipulations on that, like if you think the best version of you is becoming a serial killer, then yeah, probably not. So, I mean, yeah. But like, those are kind of general, aren't really that helpful. What are things that would make it feel belonging? How strong of a community? How would you actually build a community that's strong? And I don't know how to do that without researching it, but I could guess that strong communities are people who've gone through something together a lot of times. However, when the moon comes out from the clouds, it's so much brighter. I'm trying to think, like sports, people going around like a team, like nationalism is kind of a community of people because they have a lot of times similar cultural values and all of that sort of stuff. So I'm not exactly sure. I think it would be, I don't want to overcomplicate anything. I'm pretty sure it would just be a community. And yes, the wheat is gone. It has been harvested. But there's straw laying on the ground, so it smells like straw. So Yeah, it's just a tough question. Basically, it's people working together to do the right thing. That's what it is. So I don't know how, like, what bonding force. I think as far as vision, it would mostly be the vision. It would be someone pointing the vision out to everyone, and beginning to grow a movement of people who go after that vision. Yet the vision itself should be able to be self-organizing, a derivative of everyone in the movement working towards something that everyone is in agreement on, or like you can derive everyone's values from. I know there are softwares now with AI that do this to an extent, and maybe we could just be the first people to do that. The combine looks kind of cool under the full moon in the straw field. What else would be the core principles? I mean, beneficial for everyone. We kind of talked through how it might potentially be beneficial to everyone. And yeah, I guess I'm not getting all that far at the moment with this. It just seems like I'm not totally been able to like just brainstorm stuff, but I wonder, because it's sort of like self-evident in the definition. The force by which the world becomes the best place it can be by people who choose to come together and be the best versions of themselves and help everyone else to become the best version of everyone else. So like helping everyone to achieve the best version and generally doing the right thing and having an element of selflessness and of freedom and of changing the world into something that it could become, that we know it could become. It's just that we haven't really worked together in coordination enough to make it happen. Like that's sort of the definition, which perhaps I just need that definition to be challenged in order to, no, I think that definition is just the thing where we were saying it's a hopeful intent and intention, like a hopeful intention, but not necessarily a plan of how that could be achieved. How could that force actually come about? How could it be started? How could it grow? How could it become something that self-organizes? And I think that's what I've been trying to explore, but it's difficult to know for certain, but you want to try to get the core principles correct. So let's see, is there something else I can brainstorm that will be able to help me in my working session? I think I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get there. So like as far as like my current skills, like if it took me becoming a famous content creator to change the world, or a famous singer, like I could become those things if needed. So like whatever I have to plug into the equation as the help I can do in the beginning. I think it'll be good as a working session to just think through the planning, think through a potential self-organizing structure, and that I can help with. And then the inspiration part, the part where you get people to hear about it and all of that, is difficult nowadays because there's so many people. Why would someone want to hear about it? Now, if it's so good, if it's word of mouth, like, then that's one thing. Even if you went to a developing country and you started there and you were like, hey, let's pick this one community and together become the best versions of ourselves. And so they become educated and do a lot of learning and all of that sort of stuff while maintaining their background and all of that. Then that's like the seed, and then the seed grows by word of mouth, and eventually it's a movement that spreads. And because it's self-organizing, as like it spreads organically and then grows organically and assembles organically. And for that to all be organic takes some serious self-organizing principle and planning. And the self-organizing principles are essentially like in place of or in combination with leadership, because otherwise you'd have to have a leader, like all the other movements in history, a champion of the cause who everyone is trying to go with. And I don't think for creating a movement that actually fundamentally changes everything, I don't think that could be under the leadership of any one person. It doesn't make sense to me that would be the case. It makes sense to me that self-organizing principles, and you could almost say, you could pretty similarly say that most religions have self-organizing principles. So maybe I go the route of, because if that is very similar, people are basically looking for an alternative to religion that provides the kind of value and knowledge that religions have provided that now we have nothing for. And science does not really provide us adequate answers for a lot of things. Like, science does not say, oh, you should become the best version of yourself. So perhaps it's just creating the most logically consistent sort of self-organizing principles that anyone who's looking for an answer to what to do in life can join, and like by definition, this is doing whatever is most logically consistent in the world. And that gets very difficult because what's most logically consistent is extremely difficult to actually narrow down. And I know this because I've gone down that journey quite a lot, and it is extremely difficult because you can't really know anything for certain. So then you just kind of got to go with what's most probable. So, and I do think I've thought about that, is that the movement itself, the self-organizing principles, are by definition what most probably at that moment would succeed in becoming the force and in synergizing people to do the right thing. So I think if I had that all in like a sort of original constitution, I have it all laid out, and somehow I'm able to get people to be interested in it, then I think it's possible that could spark, and then you need a spark. But if fundamentally that constitution is written and everything's thought out, then it's sort of a playbook for how to have everyone come together. And then maybe it's some disaster that happens and people are like, what do we do? Then maybe that's like the perfect time to step up and be like, hey, maybe that's what I need to do. I need to have in that original constitution all of the potential disasters that could happen, and be like, when this happens, but like, what do we do? Do we give up? Do we say the world is just becoming dystopic? That's all we can do. When this or this happens. So that is definitely an element that we could look into, is just basically writing the original constitution. It's just so beautiful. The reflection of the moon on the grass that's on the sides of the road, and the reflection in the pond, and the sound of the creek, and just beautiful. Because a lot of people, I think, if that's all I do is provide, because that was the main problem the main reason I went down this whole track, was because I just wanted to do what was right. Like what most probably is the right thing to do. I didn't want to do what I just happened to grow up with, whatever religion I happened to grow up in. I didn't want to just go with that just because. I wanted to, or whatever other thoughts I had about how to change the world or how to live life. I still want to do the thing that most probably is the right thing to do. And I think there are other people that are going down that road. And even if there's not other people that are going down that road now, there could be in the future. And perhaps that's the value I will provide, is the initial sort of constitution for a self-organizing principle, kind of laying all that out in a book. And that book could be there for a while, and then maybe 1,000 years from now someone picks it up and it inspires them. I'm just going down the worst case scenario track here, but because I do think that regardless we could actually work toward creating something quite amazing and use that constitution to do it. But I'm just saying, worst case scenario, the constitution is not a bad thing to do. And it wouldn't be a waste of time, because it's basically just thinking through how things could work. So any time you spend into thinking through how it could work isn't necessarily lost time, especially if you're making progress with it. And so during all of that, I could think through outlining every single aspect of what actually could inspire and you rank the probabilities. And in general, I'm good at all of that, at outlining ranking different possibilities, seeing what's the most important thing, kind of understanding what's actually most logically probable in given scenarios, and what actually matters in life, what's just something that people talk about because and it consumes them but doesn't necessarily hold any weight in all reality, and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know how long it will take to create that sort of initial constitution. I've already done a lot of background work on the entire thing. So perhaps it's something where I can begin to create the Constitution and make videos asking other people that are experts on certain areas, certain parts about the movement, and people begin to get interested in it, and they're like, that's interesting, and maybe we begin to grow the movement. Although, I imagine it'll be something where, like, kind of in the middle of writing the Constitution, it's like, yeah. But yeah, I don't know. This whole idea of writing the original Constitution sort of depends on that it's not already written. I don't think it's already written. We can research that. And it also depends on that I'm able to assemble something that actually is reasonable. Maybe my intentions for the Constitution are good, but like the actual deliverable would not deliver on that intention. So we'll have to do some reevaluating. But I don't know. That seems to be the best thing to do, although I also wonder if it's not practical enough. Yeah, because of just the time constraints that I've had. But yeah, like, if you're truly productive, it doesn't necessarily need to take that long, especially if I have a lot of background work done. And I've kind of streamlined and automated some of the things. So it's just so beautiful out here. I recommend going outside. I'm so thankful that the world is still at a point where, like, it's not in a total dystopia, where it's just absolutely beautiful. I'm so happy about that. And I really hope that a version of me that's brought into this world many years from now, or let's say, and when I say version of me, I just mean like someone that happens to think like me or whatever. Maybe long in the future, we'll be able to have the same opportunities as me, or like relatively or respective to the different timelines of being able to wake up in the morning and without without worry of being surveyed while I'm taking a walk, and there's no overpopulation where I am right now, and I can just enjoy the acres and acres of lightning bugs and all of that. So I don't know, it's gonna be tricky to write the original Constitution thing, because I don't know that I'm necessarily like a philosopher enough to do it. But if it hasn't been done yet, I think hoping that other people will do it is not the way that it gets done. The way that it gets done is you actually figuring it out. And I can assemble information and I can make question videos. So if nothing else, I could just create a question. And I think hopefully if I can create an interactive enough question to some of these experts, potentially even through the podcast method, I just feel like you could get lost in the podcasting forever and go down the track of, well, we don't really know. And I am the biggest proponent of saying we don't know. However, I think saying we don't know how to make a better world is not a good answer. Like, sure, we don't know perfectly what could create a better world, but we know a lot. We know we could create a decent plan, a few decent scenarios, and we know probably what isn't going to create a better world, and a lot of times we're on that track right now. So we need to divert off that track on something better. And so, yeah, I guess maybe I will start by kind of outlining the whole original Constitution and thinking through everything this morning. And I really appreciate you joining me for this audio portion of this journey. It's beautiful. Beautiful. All right, I will see you in the continuation portion. Well, this is a continuation of day 23. We're going to get into creating the movement starting Constitution development. And I'm going to try not to make this too interactive. It's just going to be mostly me sharing the work session for future versions of myself to look back and see how things were developed, or just people to see how the journey started. I'm not expecting anyone to see this in the meantime, but I thought I might as well record it. So not necessarily going to try to make it the most interesting thing ever, but maybe it will still be interesting. So I have day 23 and day 22. So day 22, we were thinking through a lot of things. And then day 23, today, I have summarized our session talking through some things. So it's in general a little bit tough to think through a constitution. So maybe we start with just thinking through principles of the Constitution. So in my mind, this is basically that it's just a starting point, not meant to be anything too much more than that. That it is a sort of like guidance, gives an idea. Designed to, by definition, self-evolving. Probably not going to be a set of rules, more more of a plan. Thinking through what most probably could result in success. Okay. So those are the main principles of the starting constitution. Then we have and I've written a lot about the movement. Let me map out what I've written out already. Previous research. So we have, for one, we have this document, which maps out my recent thoughts while making videos. Then we have, yeah, which is all of this. Then we have sort of, I'm calling it the Journey Crafter. Documentation, which was a potential name that I had for this whole idea of us working together to create a movement of people who actually make some changes. So I have that, and that's going to be in Notion, and this is in Draw.io. Which also includes, those things. Then I've written a lot about the movement. The movement originally for me was a derivative of what I was calling the spiral timeline at the time, which I was kind of mapping out how to bring the world into something that is sort of like its ultimate state. Okay, yeah, so I think all of that fell under the ultimate world writing. And Notion, which is, I have a lot of stuff on this. I have movement book. I've already kind of written that. We have a lot of other stuff. But I was gonna say at least also the spiral timeline is a. Then another big one is, say, Phi AI development. Then I'd say also let's levied a tapestry. Which has a lot to do with my understanding Oh, and then there is the choice book, which I wrote about. So yeah, basically I have books worth of previous writing on all of this stuff. So I'm just gonna, so that's the mapping of most of the stuff I have. And most of this is a notion, so it shouldn't be too hard to find. Okay. So now that I have that, where do we start? Maybe we'll look over today's journal. Well, getting back to the Constitution idea. The original Constitution. Yeah, maybe original. So maybe I will start by asking GPT. Okay, so I'm going to try to create the original Constitution. For the movement. What's most likely the best way to go about doing this? Making an outline and then filling it in, or what are your thoughts? Maybe that's what I should start with. How to create. Define the purpose and vision. Create an outline, introduction, mission, vision, etc. Which makes sense. Makes sense. I feel a little bit like I've already done a lot of that stuff already, though. Like I've already kind of defined the purpose and vision multiple times throughout the various things I've been researching. And even up here, I feel like we kind of already have that vision mapped out. But yeah, obviously that's like the core thing. So but that makes sense. Fully define out the vision first. Okay, I'm gonna ask GPT how to define out the vision. Probably come up with a better way to handle that. Wow, that was such a good answer. Because that's not what I wanted. More in terms of methodology than it has to be a deliverable too. It has to be something that people like, it's actionable or whatever. Wait a second. Yeah, vision. So, are we really thinking through each part here? All of this makes sense, but it's just GPT's statistical thinking of what, based on my query. So, I think, because I could get GPT to write each part of this. Sometimes what I do is get GPT to come up with a list of all the things that should be thought through when writing each portion of whatever. I'm also wondering, should I start writing the Constitution in like a document? Or what? I forget how to... There we go. So yeah, let's say... I already have stuff for the movement. Maybe I need to do a review of some of this stuff. Probably need to do a review of my previous research. And I think I'm just gonna create a new document. And it's going to be something about like, yeah, the original movement constitution. So we're going to start with an outline of hold up, let's do toggle. Sorry, previous summary of, or outline of you might think, oh, well, if you've written it before, then you should remember all this stuff, but I think there's some grace here because a lot of it's like very exploratory and there's just so much information. And that's part of the issue with LLMs is they can give you just like all this information and so your brain just like processes it all and then it's like, okay, now what do I do? So let's just start with this. So I think let's start by saying, let's go by date, maybe let's make a table. And say this is date, item, description. So we have draw.io file. Or hold up, yeah, that's going to be most recent. We'll just say that's today. You can make this a date, right? Well, first of all, not that. I need a header row. Anyways, maybe it's already a header row. And then yeah, I did do some of that. So let's say that was June 1st. Trying to go in order here. I think Phi AI development would go next. And that's sort of ongoing as well. Then yeah, I guess that is. I think I was doing Louis de Tapestry. Of course, I can easily find this out because I have mapped out every 15 minutes of my life for the last several months. Wait, where is... Oh, there we go. That was about, yeah, March. January, February, March. Then, yeah. Let's see. The choice book. That mainly wrapped that up around March 8th. Yeah, I think that's everything I was doing recently. Yeah. Although... think that was mostly wrapped up. Oh, you know what? Yeah, I think I will do that. I think I wrote somewhere. Oh, that's not what I wanted. This would have been a while ago. Oh. Okay. I think that this is a decent outline of most of the writing that I've done on this topic. And if I think about it, so when I was doing the ultimate world, I have a database, thankfully, a theory database which has outlined, similar to this, where it has outlined all the different pages. And I'd say I might as well just link to that. Which outlines all the different things, including I'm interested to see what short stories I did write. Oh, I only wrote one. Okay. So, I don't feel like I got that far. I was kind of mostly. I mean, it's cool to see that I have gotten pretty far already. But me just summarizing how far I've gotten already doesn't feel like I've gotten very far just this morning and this while I've been recording. But I think you have to be able to just work through it and continue on. I guess overall plan, should probably create a mini plan. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Alright, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you tomorrow.